Hello Year 11, welcome to revision week 12. This week we are looking at one thing in particular, and that is DNS and websites, which comes up regularly and you need to know what it is for the exam. Okay, before you start, can you make sure you've got revision sheet 9? This should be all finished apart from the section in the corner that says DNS, Domain Name Server. This is the section we are doing today. Have this in front of you ready, please. Okay, quick recap just before we do this. Remember, we've talked about protocols, a set of rules for how devices communicate and how data is transmitted or transferred across the network. We know on a LAN, we have network interface card. Data is broken up into frames, and we have MAC addresses signed to the network interface card. MAC addresses are used by switches to send data to destination, and the Ethernet protocol is used to direct data. And we know on the internet, every device is connected has an IP address. That's very important for today. IP address on the internet. Data is broken up into small chunks called packets. These packets travel through the internet using different routers by a process called packet switching, which we looked at, and it's the TCP/IP protocol used to direct data on the internet. So this is what now we've covered: LAN and the internet. It's the internet we are looking at today with the IP addresses. Okay, so now we've just recapped that. DNS and accessing websites. This is what you need to know. So DNS, the main points, the bare minimum you need to know. DNS stands for Domain Name Server. Domain Name Server. Websites on the internet, such as bbc.co.uk or kundin.co.uk, are stored on something called web servers. They're servers, powerful computers that store the websites so people can access them. DNS is a special server which is used to store all the web IP addresses. Here is DNS down here. The IP addresses of the web servers which have the websites on them. So the web servers store the websites themselves, and the DNS server here stores all the IP addresses of those web servers. It's a bit like a phone book, okay, that you can look them up. So the purpose of DNS, the domain name server, is to translate the URL of a website, for example bbc.co.uk, into its IP address, e.g. 120.50.255.30. Okay, so it translates the URL that the person types in into the IP address so that the person can access the website. That's the bare minimum you need to know for this. Bit more detail for the higher marks, possibly if you get a question with more detail about it. So remember, websites are stored on web servers, servers on the internet, powerful computers that store websites so people can access them on the World Wide Web. A user or a client enters the URL of a website, so they will type in the website address www.bbc.co.uk into their web browser like Google Chrome. They'll type it in. As soon as they do that, the browser sends the URL, the request for the URL, to the DNS server. It sends the URL to the server. The DNS server then looks up the IP address of the URL into its database. So it looks up the URL. If it finds the URL, it will then look up the IP address and then send it back to the client. So it will send the IP address for the website, the URL, back to the client, the user. And the IP address will be an IP address like this: 4 groups of numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, separated by a full stop. Okay, 4 groups of numbers between 0 and 255, separated by a full stop. Once the client's computer, the user's computer, has the IP address, it can then use the IP address to access the website and load it. So again, the purpose of DNS is to translate the URL of a website into its IP address so a person or a client or a customer user can access the website. That's everything you need to know about DNS. Okay, so on your sheet, you've only got a small box here, so keep this concise, keep this simple. What was the purpose again? And what are the main points? The main points only. How does it work? Take a moment, try to do this, and then check your answers on the next slide. Okay, let's check and see what you've got. So the purpose, again, to translate the URL of a website into its IP address. How does it do it? The main points I'm looking for. The user types in the URL of the website into their web browser. The web browser sends a request for the URL to the DNS. The DNS looks up the IP address of the URL. DNS sends the IP address back to the user. And then the user uses the IP address to access the website. There's your main points, everything you need to know about DNS condensed down. It's a small box, but try to fit it in carefully, neatly, so you know and are prepared for the exam. Okay, hopefully you've done that. Final point today. Revision quiz 12. This will test your knowledge on DNS and previous topics we've covered so far in revision. Do this now, please. Repeating questions, checking and trying again if you have not got 100%. Good luck. See you in lesson.